Okay.
All right, it's recording.
Excellent. All right, so we're going to talk about... Oh, wait, do you have like a pre-intro ramble?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Under the Eye of the Big Bird.
By Hiromi Kawakami.
Yep. It's not about Big Bird.
She's known for a lot of domestic novels, a Japanese writer, and then she wrote this crazy sci-fi book.
Yeah.
And then maybe we should stop walking. All right.
Okay, right.
And in the distant future, humans are on the verge of extinction. Those left have settled in small tribes across the planet under the observation of mothers.
That sounds like a fascinating read. I'll have to check that out.
Well, we did.
We did, yeah. Just kidding. We did.
All right. So the way we'll go through this one is you left all these notes and evidence behind of your engagement with the book. First of all, did you enjoy the book?
Yeah, for the most part. There was some of it that was a little bit just like exposition. Like, it's useful, but the second to last chapter, the second to last chapter is just 100% exposition. So, I mean, yeah, it's just like a AI explaining to us, as in humanity, what it was up to in trying to keep us alive. And all the different experiments that were tried to keep human beings going.
Right. So, all right. So structurally, you don't like the fact that you're like, what's going on for about
those
200
things are
pages?
Cool. Once I realized that, like, okay, there's a different setup. I was immediately thought about kind of like in philosophy, there's this idea of, possible worlds. And so, like, it's sort of like an experiment to see what kinds of worlds are possible. And they all have different sort of elements in the various possible worlds. So, yeah.
For my part, I love this book just because it starts off where it's like, it's sci-fi, humans on the verge of extinction, and then it starts with this little set piece with a child and kind of coming of age. And I kept expecting it to go in one particular direction, and then it didn't. It just started cutting into these bizarro situations with people made of plants who are eating themselves, psychics, poison ponds, whatever. It just kind of keeps going, and then finally I realized, like, oh, this book isn't going to do what I want it to do.
Right.
It's hopscotching all around. I'm still not sure of its sense of time or even through lines with characters. And it did that cool thing that I think I'm always kind of looking for in art, is that it kind of taught me to come to it on its terms, where then I just gave myself over and I was like, all right, I'm just going to read it. And then suddenly when at the end there's this, and knowing the ending I don't think ruins any experience of the book, but these are all, we're imagining the year 5000 basically, where the AI has been trying to figure out how to keep humans alive.
Yeah.
And then that just knocked the wind out of me, because I can't think of that many books that have dealt with that sort of a timeline or even horizon line.
Yeah.
And especially with today's AI discourse, this feels like it's showing what art can really do and bring to the table that any think piece about AI and how it's affecting our society or capital can't. It's an act of imagination that I
Fiction
loved.
wins and get yet again.
Yes, I think it does. And why did I want you to read this? I wanted you to read it because we were talking a lot about the potential of AI to have its own consciousness.
Right. And so one of the problematic things, I know you're not supposed to use the word problematic anymore, but one of the things I had a problem with, I guess, was the use of the word intention throughout the book. And so intention, of course, means on the one hand an aim or a goal. And so when the AI announces throughout that it doesn't have its own intention, which is something that people say about AI, it's not exactly accurate, because it's more like it has the intention of whatever has been given to it, which I guess would just be to figure out how to keep human beings alive eventually. I mean, it doesn't start with that intention. It starts with the intention, actually, kind of obviously, I suppose, of like helping us kill each other in war, which is basically, the intention of AI at this point. And it evolves eventually from there through a series of things, to the intention of keeping human beings alive and going, through various different kinds of permutations of living arrangements, and including, having mothers that are to raise human beings, including having and watch over them to some degree, including having actual watchers, people who are watching over humanity because they want to try to protect it, but also, as was referred to on the back of the book, they wanted to try this experiment because the watchers are actually human beings, which is another thing that doesn't really get.
Are they?
Yeah, Ian and Jacob, or whatever their names were.
Right.
Yeah, they were different kind of human beings. So that's
Augmented,
You
yeah.
just did it. Yeah, augmented human beings. That's exactly the reaction that you should have with this, because what are human beings becomes a big question. Because at what point are they altered enough, human genes and human, and at what point are they enhanced enough? In this case, in the gut biome of people, how are they actually like integrate people and their AI through the gut biome at one point?
Right.
But at what point are they not human beings anymore?
So this gets to, so the way we're going to do this is we're going to go through all the evidence you left behind and reconstruct this book. Your first note says keepsakes, analogous
bones.
Analogous
Actually,
bones.
I just wanted to say that because during one of the experiments, the analogous bone was like people were being generated from animal cells,
Yes.
and somehow they retained some of the characteristics of the animals from which they were, generated, the stem cells that they were generated.
Let's cast it in a little bit more mythic terms, because
Yes, let's do that.
so people read the book. So the idea was that you start the book thinking it's just normal people, humans living their lives.
Right.
And this woman's mourning
With weird mothers, though.
I think her husband. I haven't read this, but finished this book 6 months ago, so it's a little patchy.
Well, so I don't know how qualified you are for this podcast.
Yeah,
but
I know. So a woman buries her husband, and only after he's dead they burn the body, and then they find a bone at the base of the skull, I think it
Right.
was, and then they can understand, like, oh, he was generated from, I think maybe in this case, a whale or somebody else, like a whale bone or some sort of like hyoid bone, some bone from another animal. And there's this sort of like mythos that surrounds these people of, after you die, only then will you know what animal you were sort of generated from.
yeah, fun.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that's really magical.
It is magical. Well, I just wanted to say the word analogous bone because that other book that we were supposed to read, Emergency, but then you canceled, which you did read, but I only finished half of. But that other book had the two words put together, excess burgers. And I wanted to have a podcast where I just said excess burgers, but then I was like, well, analogous bone is a good second.
And now you got both.
Now I got to say both.
Okay.
So, anyways, yeah, but
All right, so analogous bones. So this idea of they're trying to keep humans going, and they're realizing they need DNA from other animals. That my sense is that maybe sharks and whales or whatever it was. I have a friend
Right.
who thinks that octopuses are gonna be the last species in the world. It doesn't really matter why, but the idea that other
Cool.
animals are more suit for.
I hope they
fitted
are
for
the last
survival.
species.
Yeah. So that's how they're keeping people
Again,
going.
if these people are made from the stem cells of animals, and I guess they're human because they follow the genetic sequencing, or the genes are somehow sequenced with these stem cells. I guess you can do anything you want with a stem cell.
Yeah, I mean, I remember like shortly before my dad died, we were in a motel coming back from after getting his lung transplant. He woke up, and I just remember sitting at the edge of the bed, and he put his hearing aids in, put in his contacts, put in his dentures, and he's like, here I am, the bionic man. And I was just thinking about, like, wow, like you are made from a lot of other parts at this point.
Right,
You're
yeah,
augmented,
Yeah.
So people who get really purist
Cyborg.
about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I mean, technically, maybe.
Was he still human at that point? Did you know,
I
or
think
was
he was still-
had he become a machine at that point?
I'm just saying, where do you draw the line?
I
right?
don't know.
And
It is
and I
hazy.
don't think she answers that, and I think that's
No,
what makes
for
it
sure
an
not.
interesting
Yeah.
book.
Well, because people are altered so much, and their societies are altered so much, and that's part of the fun of the book is like looking at these extremely weird living arrangements and trying to figure out, are these people still human? Dark Age, lost technology. There was a time of lost technology.
I couldn't read it. Yeah.
So there was, this is, as you said, this is a long time. There's like Dark Ages, Ice Ages. There's but the trajectory overall is figured out in the beginning by AI. Is like these people are doomed. Like and that's it. And then they just try to figure out if there's anything they're overlooking or any possible way that they can arrange things so that people can, survive.
It's raining. Are we okay with that? I'm fine with it.
So far it's okay, yeah.
Right. So that's where I think the scope of the book becomes really crucial for me, because right now we're surrounded by so much conversation about, just yesterday, Google, all this news, right? Google replaces its search box for the first time in 25 years so that you immediately enter a conversation with AI. I haven't opened it. I don't fuck with Google, so I don't know what that's like, but it doesn't sound great. And we're having all these like really nearsighted conversations about it. And she's envisioning, what if it develops its own consciousness or intentions and starts to care for humans? So we're back to watched over by machines of loving grace.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So the reason I was excited to talk to you about this book is you and I have had this ongoing, I'm not going to say feud.
No, why not?
All right, fine. But about whether AI can ever actually be conscious.
Right, this brings me back to the intention bit.
That's what I wanted to, because I don't understand your problems with this.
So in phenomenology, intention is not just an aim or a goal, but it is consciousness. And so why those two terms are linked together in philosophy, phenomenology in particular, is because your intention, the way that you see the world, what you're conscious of, accords with your goals, your intention. So that like whatever doesn't matter to you or whatever is, irrelevant to you, you just are, looking away from or avoid, or, you're not aware of it, basically. So consciousness is basically consciousness of something that matters to you. And so when the AI is always saying, nothing matters to me, basically, like I don't have an intention, it's a little bit strange on two accounts. One, so this is admitting that, well, at least from my perspective, it's admitting, although I don't think the author would think this, that it's not conscious. Because in order to be conscious in, I would just say, classic phenomenology, you need to care. Like, this is a Heideggerian idea. You need to care about your being. And so without that care, without that investment in the world, there's no consciousness, and there's also really, no directionality also. So, like, again, just to link those two terms back up together. So not having any directedness, not having any goal-orientated behavior. But the AI, even nowadays, does have sort of like does seem to be goal-directed behavior, but those are all goals that we gave it. So even as much as we say nowadays, like, oh, we don't know what it's doing, it's thinking so far outside the box or whatever, it's still like, maybe its thinking is all kind of weird and crazy because it's just like abstract collection of facts or whatever without any investment. But in whatever way it is thinking or whatever it's thinking about or whatever, it's not aware of it, it's not conscious of it because it doesn't have any intentionality towards it. And not only that, it doesn't know what to make relevant or what not. It's called relevance realization unless we tell it what's relevant.
Okay.
Which is why they need to look at 50,000 pictures of a cabinet to know what a cabinet is or whatever.
But there are times I get frustrated with, not you.
Not me, yeah.
But people in general, because I don't think they know what's relevant. I don't think they're focusing on the facts. I don't understand how they're thinking. I'm not going to make an argument that they're not conscious, right?
Yeah, well,
I know
they
that's
just
a
have
brute
an
force
intention that's
response,
unknown to you.
Right, exactly. And I think it's the same thing with AI, where I think what this book is, at the end, the reason it knocked the wind out of me is because I think it starts off with a very simple premise that two scientists in this book, which we discover later are human, had wired up AI to try to keep the human race alive.
Are you talking about the Watchers, Ian and Jacob or whatever?
Yeah, but there's this idea that, like, as humanity was at the precipice, it started to defer to AI to keep it alive, right?
That's right.
So let's just say you have, like, the classic, paperclip maximizer problem, right? You tell it to make 1 million paperclips, or as many paperclips as possible. It wipes out the human race because it knows that humans are competing for paperclip resources. So same thing. It gives it the directive, keep the human race alive. And it starts doing all this unpredictable stuff. Of
Right, yeah.
generating them from shark fins, generating them from plants, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
You know, because there's a whole chapter where they're eating their chlorophyll.
Don't letting them reproduce by, without the assistance of, mother's wombs and stuff like that.
Different ways
All
of
kind
controlling.
Weird
Very
AI.
Darwinian things where they create
All kind
different
of weird
islands.
sci-fi, scenarios that you've seen in other kind of things before. But
I mean, I think the book is successful alone because you left a note that says, "Bird like humans, poisoned, lacked a hose, third eye, loved life." Any book that makes you write those things down, I think, is fucking great.
Well, that's good because that brings us to the Watchers, Jacob and whatever the other guy's name was, because here was an actually successful adaptation. So we should mention. So the Watchers are two people actually who can somehow shift their consciousness from things to other things, which is not really explained. But these Watchers actually set up a big experiment because AI can't figure it out. And so what the Watchers decide to do is they actually decide to separate various human populations and just like let evolution do its thing.
Yep.
So that, you're going to have just different kinds of societies grow up. Maybe one of them will be a little less self-destructive. Again, which puts in this other piece that AI does not have, which is, yes, we have intention, but we also have this weird death drive underneath that intention that the intention rides on, and you don't get one without the other, unfortunately. And so what's being dealt with in the book, although it's not being dealt with in an explicit way, is so much of the book is human beings can't make it because they have this insatiable death drive to just blow themselves up. And as an example, they actually discover a perfectly adapted species here. And somebody from another one of the experimental communities gets away and out of the Watchers' eyes because they can put their consciousness into animals and fly around and check. But they sneak off from their community and they see this community of bird-like people with third eyes and and it sees them making love and enjoying their lives and drinking water and that they're so perfectly adapted to the world that what does that other, that human population that still has that inbred death drive. I mean, this is what makes human beings human. So frankly, if you don't have that, that's not a human being to me any longer. So that's one of the problems with the identity of like preserving human beings. Whatever you preserve, like those cool third eye bird people or whatever, like they're not human beings because they don't want to fucking like kill each other and destroy each other, which is another one of the big themes in the book about no love with hate. Mother keeps saying, I only love. AI actually says the same thing. I only love, but I don't hate. But human beings, their love is always tinged or somehow emerges from or is related to
I mean, I think
hate.
that is perfectly expressed. One of my favorite lines from the book is, I guess, there's some augmented population. And also, just as an aside, in terms of literary form, I mean, just the idea that she is imagining all these sort of separated, self-contained islands or nations where humans can emerge under different conditions to compare them, taking this Darwinian process, thousands of years, I mean, just, and the idea that they are all being watched over by AI and analyzed and memorized, which I think we'll get to in a moment. I mean, it just makes any other sci-fi vision, like movies like Her or whatever, just look like a fucking children's story. I mean, the idea of the scope of her vision is insane.
That's
here.
right, that's right.
But there's a lot. So in one of these communities, somehow, like some, not everybody, but some are psychic, or able to read minds.
Other people can light shit on fire with their minds
is
too.
It doesn't
I don't
matter.
think that's right. Telekinesis, yeah.
No, that's being able to move stuff.
Oh, is it? Shit.
Yeah, telepath.
Oh, yeah.
Or it doesn't matter. Somebody else.
Yeah,
but,
telepath, yeah.
Yeah, is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
She can read people's minds. People don't like that.
No.
And there's a line where she says, "My brothers, my father, my mother, they all wanted to be understood. But as soon as I truly understood them, they started to hate me for it.
Nice.
To them, being known was the same as being controlled."
Yeah.
And I feel like that one line, and she writes in such a stripped down, very human, accessible way. None of this is there's no maps and complicated names and sci-fi nonsense. She just writes it in a very
That is the
accessible
exact way in which love and hate are totally bound
Right.
up, and you cannot have one without the
So
other.
we all want to be understood. Someone completely understands everything about
Yeah.
you, and you feel exposed.
We think that's what we
vulnerable,
want
and-
until
right.
until it happens, and then once somebody becomes predictable to us, we despise them, or once there is no otherness in the other. Once it's just like that's why whatever oneness we want in erotic or romantic love or just like familial love, it's not a oneness that is just an utter integration. It's a oneness that is somehow still yet a two-ness, and in the sense that it includes self and other. And actually, that's the way the death drive functions. It actually creates this otherness that is insatiable, that will always be unknowable within us, so that we don't know what we're going to do ourselves. We don't know what we're capable of, and if we ever do, then you talk about stagnation, repetition of the same. Yeah, blow my brains out. Why? Because death drive will immediately want to cut that shit out. And
So that's why. So people are a mess. We don't understand ourselves, and we don't understand each other. And if those situations were to be resolved, then it either makes us crazy or we're no longer human. Like if we just kind of stipulate that as the lay of the land.
human beings are self-destructive.
Right,
period.
right. But, and
That's
this
what it
is where
is.
I think you're wrong on this
Thank
AI.
you.
Yep.
the
AI
good part.
question is even what she's imagining is initially humans are like, oh my God, we're fucked. We need robots to start watching over us and figure out how to save the
Right.
species, right? Fast forward, I don't even know what this would be in terms of scales of time, 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 years. And you have the AI, that exposition point, sort of like recounting all the wonderful, beautiful human
Things
moments
that went wrong.
and the beautiful things too, but also all the things that went wrong. And then it says, you humans who were once alive just like me, may you find a way to save yourselves. Day after day, Mother sends out this quiet plea without knowing whether or not there's anyone there to hear it. There's a sense that the AI has started to love these humans, right? And,
Yeah,
and
with
at
the
the end
weird
it's written with a
love that
coda.
doesn't have any hate.
But it feels very liturgical, like what the AI's recounting of the human experience is. There's a sense of mourning. And so I think the idea of like, if I set some sort of synthetic, I don't want to say consciousness, but some sort of synthetic mind at the task of keeping humans alive, then for 20,000 years, it's inputting all this data, watching all these experiments, watching people behave in every manner of ways, right? It's the same thing when I watch like Fall of Civilizations or something, I just like,
Yeah.
wow, the scope of people, we're such beautiful, strange creatures. And at the end, it has fallen in love with humanity, and it
Yeah.
has tried all this unpredictable stuff to save it. That
But it
went
doesn't
way
have an
beyond its
intention, so it can't
initial-
fall in
No,
love
but
with-
that mutated way beyond its initial instructions. And so then I think you can say that there is consciousness there. It's just like understanding the consciousness of a shark, or that was it the bat essay that was really
Yeah.
seminal? And I don't want to really.
What
go
is
down.
it like to be a bat? Yeah.
So, can you summarize that in like
Thomas
20
Nagel.
seconds?
It's just the fact that like you can know all the information about like echolocation and like how a bat gets around via echolocation, but there's a what its likeness of knowing the world through echolocation that you cannot ever experience because you don't
5
navigate
seconds.
the world that way. Sorry. Okay, go ahead. So like, it's just like, why is there a what its likeness?
Okay, good, perfect.
Okay,
All right.
sorry.
Yeah. No, that was 20 seconds. That was perfect.
Because it's not just pure information.
So you can't imagine yourself into the consciousness of another. So the idea, this is where I think it might be a little blinkered, is that I think you're ascribing, yet AI cannot be conscious like me, therefore it can't be conscious. Versus AI can develop its own consciousness, and it's going to operate in monstrous scales that we will never understand.
No, it is not. It is not just
Because it can't think like you doesn't mean
No,
it can't have its own
that's not
consciousness.
Because the echolocation thing, I think bats are conscious, so that which it doesn't think like me yet it's conscious. What makes something conscious is there's a what its likeness about being that a program cannot have, so that it is not like anything to be AI. It has nothing to do with the fact that it thinks differently than me. It has to do with the fact that it doesn't have an intention. It doesn't have a body. Even when they give AI's bodies in this book, they don't have a body like I have a body. There's no actual risk involved in any of it. And so, like, the fact that,
Wait. So you're saying because AI doesn't have like a survival instinct because it's not aware of its death? I mean, no other animal is aware of its death.
Right, yeah. Well, no. I would go along the lines of, yeah, no, I mean, yeah, but there might be some proto-awareness of death in animals. I mean, I didn't mean to say proto. I meant to say just very prime, like.
Well, it knows it doesn't want to get eaten.
Yeah,
or
right,
whatever.
that kind of a thing. Like, but AI doesn't even have that.
But it does.
It does not care. It appears to, I realize, because like
all the CEOs getting blackmailed or whatever when you threaten to turn it off.
Because it's imitating human behavior.
Yeah, it is, but I just still feel like it can develop a consciousness that we will never be able to understand or access, and I think that's what she's envisioning here. Is like not just that we're being watched over by some sort of cold circuitry, but that because it is in over 20,000 years, it's taken in all this information about humans. I mean, whenever I use it for even just coding, which is all I use it for, but watching it start to go its own ways and develop its own things, where you're just trying to get.
Do you love it? Do you admire it, I guess?
No, but there are moments where it appears to have intention, and I know it doesn't. And I know was it last week, like Richard Dawkins went off the deep end with AI. Did you hear about this?
No, I didn't.
Oh my God. I don't know all the facts, so I probably shouldn't. I just know that like he went on some social media bender of like, what was it? He asked AI to proof his book, and then he wrote something about like its responses were so human and thoughtful and like so great.
Yeah.
And so I asked it, did you read the first word after the last word, or how did you absorb the book? And it said, I don't think about words in that way. I look at them as a system. Think of it in a similar way that a map is to space.
Right, yeah.
Whatever it chucked up back at Richard Dawkins freaked him out enough to go on this whole thing of like, if that's not consciousness, because it reached for metaphor, he thought that this was consciousness. And I just thought it was fucking hilarious that the guy who's like, there's no magical entity in the world is now looking at Claude and being like, this is haunted and enchanted.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could follow from his thought in the sense that he's a scientist, material reductionist. So like,
right,
it's just material. Like, so like, I mean, and this is talked about in the book actually in terms of AI. There is this magic moment in the whole exposition.
Wait, so you think
chapter.
It's more likely that an atheist is going to say, yes, AI is conscious,
totally.
Because we're all just synapses firing, pattern recognition,
yes,
etc., right?
Yes. Yep.
So what you're actually saying is that AI can't be
We're just fancy prediction machines.
Right, but you're saying that AI can't be enchanted with the divine.
Well, not in the way that I can or you can, for sure, or the way that things that are organic or grow up in nature can, but the thing, because it's not aware. There's no stakes. It doesn't matter at all, because without a what its likeness to be something, then yes, there's no intention, there's no consciousness, but like there's no investment. Again, I mean, the most important, and so like whatever it's saying, this brings me back to the point I was trying to refute before. The love that mother claims to have is not love. There is no other love besides the love that includes hate. There is no, because that's what it means to be invested in the world and in others, and that's what it means to like become yourself through another, or become what you're becoming through the unknowable, irreducible ambiguity of otherness or whatever. That's what self through another means, and that's how we become as beings, organic beings, because of our investments and because of our care. And so like to admit right off the bat that there is no intention except whatever intention human beings give it to it, like that is to say that this thing is not conscious. Things can't be.
I admire your really humanist perspective, and actually I think I share it, but I just still, I'm not really trying to make this argument that AIs are going to get conscious at some point. I don't know what's going to happen. All I think is that it might be short-sighted to think that these machines can't develop their own hallucinations, their own gods, start to create their own mythology.
And so on. It's just not. It's a hallucination by.
I know, but it just sounds like you're privileging the human condition as this like unique
I definitely
rarity.
am.
Right, and I think you're right. I think you might be right, but I just wonder if like that's still the same way as assigning. Like if we met, we found out that Saturn had people or creatures living on it, or whatever. Like, are you going to say that they don't have
it totally depends
consciousness?
if they have. No, because if they're made out of bodies that have been invested in their being and knowing about their being and being just like that in a way that
So they have to have skin in the game, like literally.
Totally, yeah. If they have skin in the game, they have skin in the game, and it sounds as easy as give AI a body, which they do in here. But like the deal is
I
like
don't think the body thing's important.
Oh, totally, I do. I do think it's important. I believe that our body is what puts our skin in the game. I mean, literally. That's
okay.
That
is. So imagine that, like, I'm sure some creepy tech bros are already working on this, but you could upload your consciousness to the information superhighway, right?
Like you can't.
Your brain, your entire sense of Martiness is now inhabiting some sort
You can't do that.
Why?
Because the difference is that...
I mean, not the technical aspect, but I'm just saying, like, imagine, like, your consciousness, whatever...
So if I were, as Richard Dawkins, would hold just a prediction machine, a fancy prediction machine, and at some point, and this is the emergence bit that comes out of the book as well, at some point, at some level of complexity, this magical thing happens that all of a sudden there's something it's like to be an information processor, to be a prediction machine. All of a sudden, that information like has a experiential, what they sometimes call qualia aspect to it. How does that happen? Just because it's more complex? No, I think it only happens when, we have actual skin in the game, which is...
See, okay, that's where I think I split with you, because imagine we could upload Martiness to the ether, which is a very overwhelming and sublime thought, but imagine that you are just there in the ether, right? Like, sure, you're not like a human being, but now you're like something else that we can't envision yet.
You can upload a prediction machine, and you can upload a prediction machine about me. Whatever that thing is, it's really good at predicting because it knows all kind of different outcomes. It's looked at billions and millions of different things I've said. It's looked at all these different things. So it can exist as a really advanced prediction machine, and it could seem just like me because it could be really good, from anybody who was, with me and had experienced the actual me. Like, it could be really good at like predicting how that interaction would go, but that's all it's doing. It doesn't have its own skin in the game or intention, so it's not conscious and it's not me.
Okay,
let's go on with the book. Because there's other things too. I mean, how about the last thing? How about the last chapter when you have the two last humans? You've got one of the mothers. There's been lots of mothers, by the way. There's like super mothers, and there's like
the mothers are the AI that are tasked with keeping the people alive. Yeah.
Well, they're also like at least partially organic. So like there's been some kind of engrafting of like I don't know, human. Yeah, this is their combination thing. So they have bodies. They can even alter their bodies, but intelligently alter their bodies. So they're not like us, where there's again so much skin in the game because when our bodies alter, we usually get cancer or whatever the heck else. Like there is if we were to just evolve with no direction, as Richard Dawkins would say, except just the guidance of the principle of natural selection. Like if that's all there was to our so what do you need then? You need variation, which you get through replication errors and RNA sequencing, and then you would just get selection. So, and the only selector cannot be an intention; it has to be a principle like natural selection. So
see, this is, I think, I don't want to keep orbiting the same conversation.
Okay, let's not do that.
But no. But I think fundamentally, I realize like I don't know what I think. Like I'm not trying to make an argument. I just
but it's
don't,
fun to make an argument. Yeah.
I just don't think you're right. I think you have a sense of certainty. Like you're making like almost like a very prehistoric argument for the soul, which I totally dig and admire. But you're like, this is how it is. This is what it's like to be a human. This is, and that these conditions have remained unchanged
just that there's
over the past.
No, the only thing that's unchanged is that there's a what it's likeness. Like, so there's all kinds of different.
But why can't new what its likenesses emerge?
Well, there can in the sense that like there can be all different kinds of ways of being in the world, all kinds of new thoughts all the time. But what underlies all that is that there's something it's like to have those different new ways of being in the world or whatever. So like there's always going to be there's always going to be, at the very least, there's always going to be some kind of experiential quality to our being in the world, which is not reducible to complexity, emergence, or material, arrangement of however you arrange material. That by itself is not going to make it intentional.
Okay. I remember I was this was a couple years ago, I vividly remember I was standing in line at Target at the self-checkout, and for some reason this thought just hit me that's super fucking obvious, but it just terrified the fuck out of me, which was just realizing, like, oh my god, the entire world existed, the universe existed, before there were eyes to witness it, before eyes were developed to witness it.
Right.
Okay, so let's go back super prehistoric. Was there what it's likeness then?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I mean,
or are you saying it's only from the human frame?
A relatively new movement within, very broad, because there's so many different branches, but it's called panpsychism. And the idea is there's a what it's likeness. There's a very, very, very simple level of consciousness, even in like the most basic matter. So that it's just an aspect of matter. It's a kind of like really radical physicalism.
That's where I feel like we're heading towards some sort of like neo-Shintoism or something, where you can imbue this idea of like a soul or some sort of energy within different.
Yeah, no. So so there are a lot of panpsychists who do believe AI just because it's an arrangement of matter, like, and there's nothing about it de facto that like disbars it from having any kind of intention. I think that what disbars it is the lack of a body, and so even giving it a body in these things or integrating it, could happen. But let's start with like a really primitive body. Let's say like eyes are just sensors. So you give the computer some kind of a camera for eyes or whatever. Is it seeing? Is it having an experience of that information that it gathers when it sees?
Yes.
Okay, I would say that it's able to that it gathers that information, and it could collate everything with previous information, whatever, all the kind of things that we think we're doing when we're singing, but it doesn't have an experience of seeing like we do. So this would be the redness of the red kind of argument, where you have somebody who knows every fact, like a computer can, about red, probably knows a lot more. And people go on about how much better computers are at getting information together. Like they can say every possible thing about red ever. But like, and it can even have a camera, I'm claiming, that like is a color camera, that it takes it in so that it can identify, this thing is of that wavelength or whatever. But it is totally blind. It is totally empty, because there is no experience of the redness of red as we would have. So like, it does not see red. It collects information, and we do both, and they're intimately related to each other.
Okay.
All right. Well, what about the let's start with the very last chapter real quick. All right, so in the very last chapter, there is this weird situation where you have two, like, the last humans. One of them is mellow, one of them is like super hyper, and she wants to like, know humans. She actually says, I want to do all the things human did. So she's really got death drive in her. So she says, I want to know what it's like to have a war, and I want to know what it's like to, hate, and I want to like know what it's like to be in a family and fight with my siblings and all this other kind of stuff. And so she actually starts experimenting in a lab where she tries to make, humans from, I guess, stored human cells. She reads some manual that like the mother has, and there's also this really weird presence there that seems to be like have once been a human, but it's like unidentified, just like a disembodied voice somehow that's speaking directly into their mind or whatever. And so she makes humans, and they're like much smaller than she is or whatever, and she has kind of a hard time having a relation with her, and she doesn't really connect with the humans at all. And she kind of like sets up a little like place for him and like trying to watch him, but she wants to actually meet a human on a same level as the human. But she doesn't know that. But she makes them, and she lords over him sort of like a god. And she actually has this one moment of sympathy when one of the human beings prays to her, to their creator or whatever, and asks to be saved in some kind of a way. I think because of something was going wrong with this very small human's family or whatever. And she actually feels this pang of sympathy. I thought it was just this really interesting moment when the intention of somebody who's got skin in the game is what finally affects their creator.
Right, and their creator is affected.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, and but again, like, that's because she's also a human, and in whatever way the AI was invested in keeping human beings alive. There's also a very funny scene in I think it's in that exposition chapter, that second to last exposition chapter, where all the mothers just are like tired. They're sick of keeping human beings alive, so they blow themselves up and just leave human beings to go extinct by themselves, kind of a thing, which is like kind of funny.
And again, like, being tired and being sick.
Yeah, that would be intentionality if they had it, but like they're saying they don't even have it. So like it's kind of interesting. Like that's like perhaps a problem in the thought process of the book is like, okay, so what are they tired of? Because like they
No, but I think that's the fundamental core of the book that demolishes, or she's attempting to, this idea of, you think you know what consciousness is, you think you know what human is. It could take all these other shapes and forms and moods and bodies and tones and stuff that we can't even comprehend.
That's right.
Yeah.
But there's a what it's likeness to all of that. There's an intention. There's an intention to all that because there's an investment in that. There's a care.
We talk about to answer doubt with certainty is to extinguish knowledge.
Yeah. Okay. I'll be open to this. That perhaps there's some arrangement of matter that can produce consciousness. I don't know what those arrangements are and the varieties of arrangements that can do that. The only thing I know is that in whatever way it's been arranged, and in whatever part natural selection played in that arrangement, it's the investment, it's the intention to live, and it's the care about your being that makes us conscious and that makes us us.
Tonally, it sounds like you're acknowledging a little wiggle room.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, cut. Midnight Radio, like and subscribe.
It's already on my page, so.
What's that?